I'm Caleb.
I'm Ginette, and this is Surely Mental.
Today we will be teaching you all a little bit about the history of the LGBTQ plus community and why the fight is not over yet. We will dive deep into key figures and important moments in history.
So let's get started.
Let's start with Stonewall.
So, Caleb, what is Stonewall?
Stonewall is one of the most well-known riots in LGBTQ plus history. It officially happened on June 28th, 1969. Basically, the police would raid the gay bars just to raid them, and that's what they would do. But this time the people fought back. They threw bricks, they threw rocks, lots of things were being thrown, and it's hard to say they won because it wasn't really like a win or lose situation, but it was a key turning point because I think it was at that moment that they realized this isn't just a group of people that you can control. Like, they will fight back.
Yes, exactly. And, the raiding of the gay bars, it was very clearly done by the police just to be homophobic because, the specific bar, the Stonewall Inn, was owned by the mafia. And, they would basically, I keep saying, they would, pay off the police to not raid them because they were overcharging for alcohol and stuff like that. Um, but they would still just go in every once in a while, and it just became such a normal thing. Like they would just flicker the lights, and the people would be like, "Oh, it's just another raid." It was terrible, and they would single out specifically Black individuals who were trans or gay. Um, and if you didn't, from at least one account that I read, they would specifically single out people who looked stereotypically gay or trans. Like one person, I forget the name of the person whose account I read. They looked they looked straight. Like that term, it's a terrible way to say it, but that's how they said it. They looked I stereotypically straight. So the police, they knew they were going to be left alone. But unfortunately, that was not the case for a lot of unfortunate individuals.
It's also said to think about, like, the fact that, yeah, the police aren't necessarily raiding these bars anymore, but people still have that mindset. I mean, there was that raid and shooting of that bar down in Orlando pretty recently. I'm doing some really quick Google search typing. Yeah, in June 12th, 2016, so 6 years ago, there was
6 years ago.
Yeah, that was a long time ago. But this guy named Omar Mateen, not really sure, he was 29-year-old man, and he went into a bar, the name of which was Pulse, down in Orlando, Florida. And in the end, 49 people, including himself, actually died, and 53 others were wounded. So while this still isn't really happening with the police so much, it's still happening in society.
Yes. Which is one of the reasons that we're going to get in later that the fight is not over. And it's still very important to look into this kind of stuff and fight back.
One important person that was involved at Stonewall was none other than Martha P. Johnson. Was that a good transition? I think that was a good transition.
That was a good transition.
Yes. So, Martha P. Johnson was born on August 29th, 1945 in New Jersey. Everything's legal in New Jersey. She's That was good, wasn't it?
That was really good.
She used to be known as Malcolm, and then transitioned her name to Black Marsha before finally settling on Marsha P. Johnson. She said that the P stands for Pay It No Mind. She quickly became a huge person in the LGBTQ plus community and helped a lot of homeless and struggling youth. She was very successful. She struggled with mental illness, like a lot of us today. And at the Stonewall, she was there. She was throwing the bricks. She was helping out everybody and was one of the leaders. I don't want to say leaders. That's kind of a condescending term. But activists, the person that was along with everybody else fighting. Do you know anything about Martha P. Johnson?
I know that she was actually in the, I think it was the Navy. Let me check. Yeah, the Navy for a little bit. But that's
Oh,
interesting. I'm assuming it was before she transitioned because I don't think that would have been accepted at the time.
probably. Netflix recently released. Recently, I actually have no idea how long it was. Some quick Google searching. Oh, wow, 2017. They released a documentary on her life and death. So 2017, 5 years ago.
Oh yeah, and
Crazy.
I think the word you were looking for was vanguard. They're saying that she was the vanguard of the gay liberation movement, one of the
Vanguard.
main instigators.
Instigator. That's a good word. I've never heard the word vanguard before.
Let's see, what does that mean? Vanguard is a noun meaning forefront. So like one of like the first people.
Yeah. Yeah. So she lived from 1945 to 1992, and it's very interesting, her death story. On July 6th, 1992, her body was found in the Hudson River. The police ruled she committed suicide, although multiple people, including her roommate, said that she was not very suicidal and it was an unlikely thing. The case was later reopened 25 years later, so quick math, 1992 plus 25. Let's see.
1917. I'm sorry, 2017.
Yes. 2017, the case was reopened by Victoria Cruz, and as far as I'm aware, nothing came from it. I might be wrong, but I haven't been able to find anything about it. A lot of people suspect that the case was just quickly ruled a suicide because, again, at that time, being LGBTQ was labeled as a mental illness, so it just made sense. Oh, that's how you die.
And
And
that's just a whole nother can of worms that they listed that as a mental illness.
yep. So
Like I remember I was reading this list. I don't know how accurate it was. It was just something I saw on Google. But it was a list of what was considered a reason to be sent to an insane asylum in like the early 1900s. No, I think it was the late 1800s. And like one of them was being gay, trans, and another one was having asthma.
asthma,
That was considered something that was wrong with you.
that's definitely unique.
Which I have asthma, so
Well,
looks like I belong in an insane
you
asylum.
have a lot of other things too.
Okay. Wow.
Sorry.
No.
All right.
Um,
Gay marriage.
Yes. Let's talk about
Look
gay
at that
marriage.
transition. Yeah, let's talk about gay marriage. Um, you want to talk about Massachusetts?
Uh, so let me figure out the year. Um, Wait, give me one moment. So Massachusetts was
Well,
the first state to legalize gay marriage, and I'm trying to figure out the year.
one interesting thing to note is that both the movies Frozen and Shrek 1 and 2 are older than legal gay marriage on a national level, and that's just crazy to think about because I remember seeing Frozen in movie theaters as a little kid.
I, I feel like Frozen seems to have been made so recently in my mind. I remember listening to the album before it came out on my little karaoke machine, and then just to think that like if I was like 20 years older, I would have been like fighting to have the right to marry at that time when little me was just like so innocent and had nothing wrong with the world.
Frozen came out November 27th, 2013.
Yes. And when Massachusetts legalized gay marriage in 2003.
Nice. That, yeah,
But
significantly before all the other states.
which way to go, Massachusetts?
Yeah, go for it. Massachusetts actually, just recently elected the first lesbian governor nationwide,
Oh, wait, sorry,
which was also
2004,
followed.
not 2003.
Oh, 2004, which is also followed by Oregon, who also elected a lesbian governor. So go Oregon and Massachusetts.
I feel like I've never heard it pronounced Oregon.
How do you say it?
Oregon?
I've always said Oregon.
I don't know how
Maybe
it's
it is.
pronounced.
Maybe we have to ask an Oregonian, Oregonian. Those sound
But
terrible.
sorry, anyone from Oregon.
Or Oregon, whatever. Yeah, sorry for your state, but way to go, guys, electing lesbian. So, June 26th, 2015, which was only 7 years ago, was the date that same sex couples could legally get married across the United States.
Yes. And before that, there was the Defense of Marriage Act called DOMA, which was passed in, I don't know the year, but it was defined as unconstitutional by the United States in cases such as United States versus Windsor in 2013. And I'm going to butcher this name. Uh, you want to say it, Caleb? It's on the slide. I'm going to highlight it right now.
What am I saying? Obergefell versus Hodges. That was
I was,
I am
I
praying
was,
that I said that correctly.
I was definitely not going to say that correctly. I was
I
going to
think
say
it's
like,
Obergefell versus Hodges. I may be wrong, but
I was going to say like Abergefell.
that was the Supreme Court case that made, what am I trying to say here? That made same-sex marriage legal nationwide. It was a 5-4 majority, which is crazy to think about that it was that close. 5-4.
Yeah.
The people that were on our side were Kennedy, Ginsburg, Brager, Sotomayor, and Kagan. Roberts, Scalia, Thomas, and Alito were against it. I completely butchered some of those names, so that's
And
great.
then with DOMA, it basically defined legally that the word spouse refers only to a person of the opposite sex who's a husband or a wife. And basically was saying, it was like an indirect way of saying same sex marriage is legal. And, well, not really indirect. I don't know. It didn't straight up say same sex marriage is illegal, it just gave a definition to the word spouse. which just was a complete like stab in the back to the whole entire LGBTQ plus community.
One, at the particular time in Obergefell versus Hodges, Chief Justice at that time was John G. Roberts Jr., and he voted to not keep it, to not let same-sex people marry. And his reasoning was that and I quote, while same-sex marriage might be good and fair policy, the Constitution does not address it, and therefore it is beyond the purview of the court to decide whether the states have to recognize it or license such unions. So I can't in good conscience say that I've read the entire United States Constitution. But from my understanding, aren't we the people everyone?
Yes.
Like,
well, when it was written, I'm going to assume that we the people did not include black individuals. And probably did not include women that much. It was mostly meant for men. But it's been reinterpreted so many times throughout the years that now we the people should be everybody.
yes. And for those that don't know, Obergefell versus Hodges, basically, it was this gay couple that wanted to get married in their state. I'm not exactly sure what state they were from, but they wanted to get married. The state said no, so they sued the state, and they went to the state Supreme Court. The state Supreme Court was like, you guys should not get married, so they brought it to the Supreme Court. And now
The states were Ohio, Michigan, Kentucky, and Tennessee. There were multiple couples.
Yeah, but was it all, like, I'm pretty sure Obergefell and they were only one couple.
Oh, let me check.
Okay, so James Obergefell and John Arthur James. Can you imagine marrying someone with this, like, your first name being their last name? Anywho, they were from Maryland, and they wanted to get married, and they said no. So Hodges, I'm assuming at that time, was the district's, like, the state's person, which is why it's Obergefell versus Hodges. I don't know. I haven't done a ton of research on this.
Well, it's not versus. I was taught this in my history class the other day. It's specifically V because I don't know, I guess versus was considered too competitive or something like that.
Obergefell V. Yeah, I know it's V, but, like, come on, it stands for versus. Don't come at me, lawyers, but it stands for versus.
Yes, and basically, they were saying that that they could not. One of the couples that kind of inspired the case, not the specific couple, not Obergefell versus Hodges, V. Hodges, but one of the couples that kind of inspired the case, was saying that the 14th Amendment states that they have to, sorry, that I'm trying to get my like thoughts in order. That the state has to license them to marry um, because a marriage between two people was. I'm gonna cut that part out. Never mind. I don't know what I'm trying to say.
All right, so Obergefell v. Hodges happened in 2015. You would hope, pray, think that that'd be the end of it. That, people can get married now. Great, let's continue on with our day. Unfortunately, that is not true. We are still having problems to this day, almost 7 years later.
Yes, and very recently we overcome a lot of the challenges. Um, as Caleb stated, two lesbian governors were chosen to be part of was it the House of Representatives or the Senate?
They're governors.
Oh, I thought it was. Never mind.
They govern the state.
I thought it was they were governors and then they were selected for one of the Supreme Court of the
Nope,
House of
I'm not
Representatives.
sure if any of them had previous political things. Maybe they were a senator or representative before this. I just know that in this most recent 2022 midterm election, they were elected for governor.
Yes. And let's see, what other challenges are there today other than blatant homophobia by a lot of people?
So falling back to Obergefell v. Hodges, you would think that, oh, they won, people can get married nationwide, and while that is true, it's up for debate currently with the current leading Supreme Court. So much so that, let's see, this is getting released Monday. Last week, the Respect for Marriage Act was brought into play. I'm going to quote this part. The Respect for Marriage Act would guarantee legal protections for millions of marriages in the United States by repealing the Discriminatory Defense of Marriage Act and ensuring that marriages are entered into legally and given full faith and credit by every state and the federal government. So basically, this is just another step of codifying or securing this particular act was for same-sex marriages and interracial marriages, as a matter of fact. So the fight's still going on today, unfortunately.
Yeah, interracial marriage, that's just like we fought this battle 200, yeah, 200 years ago, over 200 years ago, and it is still being called into question. Well, not interracial marriage. I mean, like, we fought black people being considered equal to not equal. It was still not considered equal 200 years ago. Slavery, just like getting rid of slavery. I mean, we fought this battle like 200 years ago, and it
Mm-hmm.
is still being brought into question today.
While LGBTQ plus people's marriages are at stake, it's also important to recognize trans kids across the state. I cannot imagine living in Texas or Florida right now. I mean, it is crazy and not safe at all. Florida recently, I have no information or anything pulled up on this. I'm just speaking from memory. So if the facts are wrong, they're wrong. But Florida recently forced hundreds of thousands of kids to detransition across the state by banning trans healthcare for under the people of 18. And it's important to note that the word healthcare is a very broad term. A lot of people are like, oh, they're just banning the surgeries for these kids. No, healthcare includes access to mental health services and LGBTQ related therapists for kids that they can no longer access just because they're a kid, which is so sad and heartbreaking. And then Texas is criminalizing parents of trans kids. So basically, if you live in Texas and you have a trans kid, you could go to jail for child abuse, which is mind blowing.
Yeah, and also in Ohio recently, they have, I don't see a date on this, but it was very recent. The If it's passed, it has not been passed yet, but there's a bill that is trying to bar physicians from administrating transition procedures, including like this is in quotes puberty blockers and hormones to trans use, including those already receiving health care from their guardian's consent with their guardian's consent. And it would also block the government from funding hospitals and other providers that are not hospitals that administer such care to transgender individuals of youth.
So the world is still a terrifying and frightening place, and it sucks. So, sucks is a terrible word, but it does.
Yeah.
Let's lighten up the mood a little bit by debunking some gay myths.
Is this lightening the mood?
You know what? No. But it's a topic switch that I'm gonna use.
Okay. Well, first off, one gay myth that is so common is that gay men are feminine and lesbians are masculine, and that is just the way it is. Like, it is true in some cases, and there's nothing wrong with it. It's just to stereotype that that's the way it has to be is wrong and incorrect.
And it's crazy that people think that, but they do, unfortunately. Another thing that's not true is that LGBTQ plus people are going to hell. You're not. You're not. Don't worry. Nothing to worry about. Nothing. I mean, unless
Unless
you're
you're
a
a terrible
serial killer.
person.
Yeah. But just simply existing, you're not going to hell. You're not.
Yeah, nowhere in the Bible does it specifically define um uh like I guess a correct couple as being male and female. There is one verse in the Bible which I do not know. I am not religious.
There
Like
is. I am religious, and there is that one part where, let me do some quick Googling and pull it up.
yeah, but basically it says something about I think it was regarding Adam and Eve. I might be wrong. I'm probably wrong. I'm gonna just let Caleb take this away.
Oh, not quite so fast. I haven't found it yet.
But
Um,
because I remember I was having this argument with my friend because I thought at the time I was under the influence that it did say in the Bible that being gay was bad and um that people
there
who were
are
gay were going to hell.
certain verses that I know get used a lot, um, where it might depict gay people, but that is not completely true. Editing that out because I lost my train of thought halfway through that sentence. That's not what I want. Goodness gracious. It's in Matthew. I know it's in Matthew. I found that much out.
I'm trying to find it too.
This is terrible.
Actually, I might be wrong about this.
No,
I'm reading a
there's
Bible verse
something.
right now.
There's something in it. I know there is.
No, I
I'm
mean I might be
almost.
wrong that it doesn't say anything bad about homosexuality.
Oh, it 100% does. Let's go through those verses and debunk them.
From
You don't know anything.
Leviticus 20:13.
Hold up. Do you know anything about this?
I'm going to read it and you're going to tell me what it means.
Okay, go for it.
If a man lies with a man as one lies with a woman, both of them have done what is detestable. They must be put to death. Their blood will be on their own heads.
Where is that from?
Leviticus 20:13.
Okay, so let's think about the fact that again I don't have things pulled up in front of me. I'm just speaking from memory and from what I've been told growing up. let's think on the fact that, yes, Leviticus is a book of law. It's a book of rules. It's written as such. It's like, ... this is what you do, this is what you don't do, blah, 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 blah. But those rules were given to the ancient Israelites. I don't know about you, but I don't think we're no longer living in an ancient Israelite world. And also, when you look on the fact that if you do believe in Christianity and if you do follow the traditional Christian beliefs, that Jesus came and saved us from all of our sins. And when he did, he broke the old covenant or the old set of rules and replaced them with a new one. So, yes, you could, if you don't believe in Jesus and you don't believe in the breaking of the old covenant and the creating of the new covenant, you could say that homosexuality is a sin. But, I mean, you probably eat pork. You probably wear mixed fabrics. You probably don't cover your head on Saturdays or Sundays. So it's like,
Why pick and choose?
Yeah, and a lot of people will use the pick and choose argument for LGBTQ plus people, and they're like, oh, well, why are you picking this verse and ignoring this verse? And it's like, okay, but you're kind of doing the same thing. And if you really truly believed that Jesus saved you from all of your sins, like, you're saved. You're fine. You probably lie to yourself on the daily. That's a sin. Yet I'm not going around being, oh, well, this person lied about this, so I guess they're going to hell.
Yeah.
Any other verses? I think there's one in Romans.
In Timothy, Paul writes, the law is for people who are sexually immoral or who practice homosexuality or are slave traders, liars, promise breakers, or who do anything else that contradicts the wholesome teaching.
Not you freezing up on me. Hello?
Okay, yes. How much of that did you
froze
hear?
up. I heard the beginning. Why don't you repeat the whole verse again? Sorry.
All right. In Timothy, Paul writes, the law is for people who are sexually immoral or who practice homosexuality or are slave traders, liars, promise breakers, or who do anything else that contradicts the wholesome teaching.
So, do you know what version that you read that from?
Timothy 1:10.
Is there like a set of letters in parentheses near that?
It says 1 Timothy 1:10.
Yeah, okay. So
That's all it
no, so
says.
I'm not sure what version that's from. But think about when the Bible was written, right? Long time ago. I'm not sure on the exact date, maybe 5,000 years ago, something similar to that. There wasn't a word for homosexuality. There just was, like, it wasn't a thing. You didn't have a word for it. So it was clearly added in the Bible, and I'm not sure what translation that was from, but I know there was this Catholic church that added homosexuality to the Bible, and then it just kind of got copy pasted and spread. Kind of like how rumors start, if you've ever been to a school. There's also some... What was that?
The Bible was written between 1200 and 165 BC.
Yeah, so that was a very long time ago.
And yeah, mistranslations happen all the time. And a lot of, like, I'm pretty sure there's, like, contradictions in the Bible and stuff. A lot of that's probably mistranslations. And
Also,
again, as Caleb said, they didn't have a word for homosexuality at the time.
yeah, a lot of I'm probably gonna. So you have to keep in mind that the Bible wasn't written in English. It just wasn't. Um, so if you look at the actual, I'm not sure if it's Arabic or Hebrew or one of which, and I'm probably gonna butcher these. But the most common ones that got translated into homosexuals was Malakoi and Arsenokoitai. I 100% butchered those. So you really don't have a direct translation of any of the verses, and like I'm sure if you were to really go into it, you'd probably be looking at something like pedophiles and such. So like, or like cheaters in a way. So if you're gonna argue that it's a same-sex relationship, it's kind of mind-blowing because Bible wasn't written in English, probably got mistranslated, and yeah, I don't know. That's what I got.
I'm looking to see if there's any other verses I can find that are specifically homophobic.
Also, think about the fact, does God really care? Like, you think this supernatural being is going to be like, oh, well, you like men and you're a man. Like, no. No, no. That's not
And
how that works.
also, if we're going into the idea that um this supernatural being has been around this entire time, then likely whatever God believed in 1200 BC, his ideas could have changed just as much as your and mine do.
Um, never thought about it that way, that God's mind could change. I don't I don't know what to think about that right now in this current moment.
Like, it's just an
Another,
idea. Again, I'm not religious, so I don't know anything
yeah,
about that kind of stuff.
another one that's used quite frequently to be like, ugh, those homosexuals, is Romans 1:27, which is men committed shameful acts with other men and received in themselves in the due penalty for their error. But if you look at the beginning of that, it actually is in the same way men abandoned natural relations with women and were in shameful with lust for another, and then da 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 da. So you're possibly looking at cheating. And then I've heard some sources, I don't know them off the top of my head, that it's like men committed shameful acts with other boys, and that last men was mistranslated, which is a huge possibility. And yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with that. Men should not be hanging around little boys. That's what I got with that.
Yeah, and with the one I talked about earlier where it said, with Leviticus, like right after it, he talks about how humans should not be having sexual relationships with animals, which the idea that it's just like locate, like just grouping those together as if they're similar things.
Yep. The story of Sodom and Gomorrah is used occasionally. I don't know if you're familiar with that. Probably not, because you're not religious.
No. My mom was very religious. She would know a lot more about this than I do. She's not religious anymore, but like, well, she is. She's not like
Get her on the
very religious.
pod. Get her on the
Yeah,
pod.
maybe one day.
What's stopping you from going grabbing her?
Fine, one moment.
No, don't. You don't have to. No, you can. You can. I'm not gonna stop you.
No, wait, what do you want me to ask her?
I don't know.
Then we can wait.
I'm trying to find a summary of the story of Sodom and Gomorrah because I really don't know how to explain it.
How are we doing on time here?
We've been talking for 40 minutes.
Oh, wow.
We're fine with time. I mean, we're gonna go through and edit. I'm gonna go through and edit a bunch out, but for now, we're doing great.
Yeah. Well, let's go. While you're doing that, our next point with Gay Mess was that LGBTQ plus is corrupting the children. What do you think about that, Caleb?
Well, it's not true. There's I think any time you group a group of people and say they're bad is a bad thing. Cuz like even on the flip side that's a bad thing. Like yes, some LGBTQ plus people are atrocious. They're just bad people. It has nothing to do
But
with
it's
them being
not
LGBTQ
because
plus.
they're gay.
Some Christians are wonderful people and some are not. So anytime you take a group of people and you're like, this is a good group of people and this is a bad group of people, I think that's when you start to get in your own head a bit much.
Hmm. And um, like so many things nowadays, like in so many states, they're taking pride flags out of classrooms and saying that's inappropriate and they shouldn't
And
be
libraries, and
discussing sexual
libraries, just
and
saying.
libraries. Um, and saying that this shouldn't be like shown to the younger generations when there is nothing harmful about teaching somebody that there's nothing wrong with them. Like kids, um, young LGBTQ people before they realize who they are and what's going on in their head, lots of people come to the conclusion that there's something wrong with them. And a lot of that stems from the fact that we're not taught about it at a young age. So everyone's just taught, well, boys like this and girls like this, and uh, boys have to look like this and girls have to look like this, and just if you're born a boy, you are a boy, stuff like that. And we're not taught that that's incorrect, just blatantly wrong, and we need to be taught about that because that would save a lot of people from like terrible mental health.
Going back to the story of Sodom and Gomorrah, basically, Sodom and Gomorrah lived in this city and they sinned. It's unclear what the sin was. It was definitely like a sexual sin. A lot of people relate it to homosexuality. Basically, they sinned, and God destroyed the entire city except for the family of Lot. Lot's not very important. So Sodom and Gomorrah sinned, and the city was destroyed. A lot of people say their sin was. I can't find any actual verses right now, but a lot of people say the sin was homosexuality. That's not true. It was rape. It was a gang rape. Um, and that shouldn't be done. So yes, if you're going to do that to people, I 100% think that is a sin. But that's just an example of another story that gets mistranslated.
And lastly, the myth that trans people, in order to be taken seriously as trans individuals, have to get surgery. Which a lot of
It's
people,
just crazy.
even if they want to get surgery, they can't afford it. They can't. It might not be legal in their state anymore. Um, and other people just they even if you don't want to get the surgery, that doesn't make you not trans.
Mm-hmm. And
Like,
never ask a trans person if they've had it. Just don't. Like, I'm not going around being like, oh, well, have you had, whatever done? Like, you just don't do that as a human being. As a good person, you don't do that.
what's in your pants and on your chest is nobody else's business except your own, and it
Unless
doesn't define who you are.
it doesn't define who you are, and it's nobody's business except your own. But if you want to, I know there are some people out there that are very open about it, and if you want to do that, go for it. Great. But
Yeah.
again, that's your choice. That's not, somebody else isn't doing this to you.
Hmm. Well, some people are doing it to you, but they shouldn't be.
Well, yes. And it's so dysphoric for people.
Mm-hmm. And is there
Right.
anything else
Well,
we want to talk about?
no, none that I can think of.
I think we covered it. Well, we probably
We
didn't get over everything.
we got on a rant that I wasn't thinking of going on, which was, but we did it.
Yes.
How should we
So,
close?
I think we should re-record our outro because we did not mention in our outro how often and when our podcast releases.
All right. So should I end the main episode recording, or should we say like a sentence of it being over?
Um, Last time I think we just ended it.
All right. This is all going on the YouTube, all 45 minutes of it.
Yeah. Thanks for tuning in. Surely Mental is a weekly podcast released on Mondays at 3 p.m.
Don't forget to follow us at Shirley Mental Podcast on all socials. This is Caleb.
And Ginette.
You can find us personally on all socials at cable_2431.
And at Ginette Ireland. This was Surely Mental. See you next time.